Let's turn now to the big news at the end of last week with China lifting the tariffs on Australian wine. That industry did get to $1.2 billion a year in exports to China. It fell off the cliff. Let's get some reaction to the news now that our wine will be going back into that massive market. The CEO of Australian Grape and Wine, McLean, joins me in the studio. Lee, great to see you. How quickly will we start to see Australian wine back on the ships and heading to China?
Yeah, so look, it's great to be here. I think the first thing to note is that it depends a little bit on the size of the business, but certainly for the more sophisticated operations, they'll have product heading into that market pretty quickly. We know that there's still really strong demand for the premium sort of wine.
Within weeks?
Yep, yeah, absolutely. But there'll also be a bit of wait and see for some businesses as well. I think some businesses will be either looking to see what others do or having to source their product and arrange their relationships with customers. But it will happen fairly quickly.
But you said there is a demand for our wine?
Absolutely.
And the premium product too?
Definitely. So the market's changed a little bit in China over the last couple of years. People are drinking a bit less by volume, but they're still drinking at quite high price points, and that's where we do very well. So they enjoy the rich sort of red Australian wines that we do very well, and we're looking forward to being able to provide those again.
I mentioned at one point the export market got up to $1.2 billion. It was massive. Can we get back to that measure?
Look, perhaps eventually we can. I think, but in the short to medium term, we're unlikely to get to that sort of level in the next couple of years. It's going to take time for us to rebuild our presence in the market. And as I said, the market has changed fairly considerably as well over the last couple of years. So it is going to look a little bit different, but I think with the right amount of work, we can't afford to forget all the other markets as well that we've been trying to develop as well. So it's going to take a little bit of time, but we're looking forward to getting back into the market.
And when it comes to having supplies ready to go, we have a glut right now, don't we, in terms of products? So there's no shortage of wine to be able to export.
That's exactly right. So I think the thing to remember is that we've got about 450 million litres of red wine sitting in tanks and barrels across the country. So it's going to take some time for that to be depleted. And a return to the China market's not going to solve all of those problems. We need to keep building markets wherever we can. And there's also going to be a discussion on the supply side about whether we've got the right number of grapes in the ground as well. So there's a lot of work for us to do over the next couple of years to work through that issue.
How is the industry going? You spoke about some other markets that we've been working on in recent years. Where are they? And has that helped fill the void left by China?
Yeah, look, to put this in perspective, so you mentioned that $1.2 billion figure with China earlier. At that point in time, our next two biggest markets were the US and the UK, and they both sat at less than $500 million each. So there was a long way between our biggest and second biggest markets. The reality is you can't sort of replace what we lost in China with any single market or collection of markets. But we've seen some good growth in Southeast Asia in particular. The US and the UK have been reasonable. And in the long term, we're really hoping that we can see some good opportunity in India as well.
Yeah, well, and just finally, you touched on this, a bit of a shift in the drinking behaviours in China, but still a demand for quality premium Australian product. So that is encouraging to you.
Absolutely. So we know that China's consumers continue to have a really strong affinity for what we make. They love the sort of rich, bold Australian red wines that we produce in this country, and we think that we've got a really good opportunity to provide and meet that demand in the near term.